Showtime! The Capital G show starts right now.
What's up YouTube, Capital G here, talking Cyber Stein once again in this video, and I find myself still fascinated that such a card has been legalized again. Like, even though it's only in the OCG, which we all know is vastly different, I'm just like still in awe. Now, reactions to Cyber Stein getting unbanned were, they were pretty typical. Like, most people were basically like, oh, fuck this, I can't believe this. I, on the other hand, was basically like, because we all know that I'm crazy liberal when it comes to the ban list, real destruction, bring that shit back, Konami, make it happen. Anyways, it got me thinking, how many of you would actually run Stein if it was legal right now in the TCG? My first thought was, okay, well, Cyber Stein OTK is dead, so don't even think about that shit. It's not going to happen. When Stein was in its heyday, and Stein was like a tier 1 deck right before Cesar Gonzalez won Shonen Jump Philly, and Upper Deck said, you know what, just, fuck this. And they E-banned it. The card was at 3, so it's just not going to run the same when the card's at 1. Hell, you even had Sangan, which was legal, even though they didn't run it because, like, why would you? I mean, if you're playing against Stein OTK, why would you ever, like, randomly attack into a face-down monster? It just wouldn't make sense. Like, for fear of it being Sangan, you just help your opponent get to Stein faster. You'd be, like, digging your own grave. Also, you have to consider, as I said before, there were no such things as hand traps in the game at the time that Cyber Stein was, like, rampaging about. So, if you got through your opponent's monsters in back row, I mean, basically you had the green flag. Unless you ran the shit-tastic Karibo, which you didn't. Ever, because that card is just fucking awful. I mean, fast forward now, you got like Effect Veiler and Scarecrow and Battle Fader, not to mention Gorz, which is, that would just be awful. Like, you attack with a limitered Cyber Twin for like 5,600, and then your opponent drops a Gorz in defense, and now you have a 5,600 token to deal with on top of the Gorz, and you can't kill them both with twins, so it's like, yeah, have fun with that. And then lastly, the game, the way that we have it now, you just don't have the amount of back row hate that we had back then. Like, you remember, not only was Storm legal, but freaking Cold Wave was at 3. I mean, there was just so many ways. Like, who cared about your opponent having 3 and 4 cards in the back row? It was like, Heavy Storm, Cold Wave. And then you had Giant TRUNADE, which is like the best OTKing field removal card ever as far as spell and traps go, because, I mean, it's even better than Storm. You don't have to worry about shit like Starlight Road or Stardust Dragon, cards that, offer protection from destruction, because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, there's like no card that offers protection from, shit being put back in your hand, hence why Brio got banned. But anyways, I look at Cyber Stein OTK as a deck, and it's like, even if Cyber Stein was legal, it wouldn't work. So that's completely, out of the question. Which left me with some of the decks that I thought that the random Stein could actually work in. The first deck that I came to was GEARGIA. And it would just be stupid level in GEARGIA. I'll admit that. It would have so much synergy. First off, it's searchable from Gear Giant X, which now that we have shit like GEARGIA Angler coming out, which, again, people for some reason don't think is broke, you'd be able to search Cyber Stein like turn 1. And you also have limited removal, which is just really easy to incorporate the deck since it's all machines. And you basically think of the fact that if you search Cyber Stein from Gear Giant X turn 1, your opponent is going to be very hesitant to use some of their best defensive cards. Because, if I have this Cyber Stein in my hand and it, yeah, you can go ahead and use, your Phoenix Chains and all this other shit on my little weak monsters. But when I drop Cyber Stein, you're going to need something to defend yourself with. So I can just basically overwhelm you with my GEARGIAs because you're going to be kind of hesitant to use your good defensive cards. So, I mean, it definitely fits in there. The second deck I thought about was Hieratics. And I haven't played Hieratics, but I pretty much know the deck inside and out and its playstyle. I mean, outside of Card D, doesn't the deck practically never actually need its normal summon? Like, even stuff like Birdman that they can normal summon, it's like they can just bounce that using Red Eyes and then resummon Red Eyes and Synchro and OTK. So, the deck already has a very OTK-ish style, so Cyber Stein just kind of gives them another ace in the hole. And, you know, some people say, well, that makes the Hieratic deck, like, more susceptible to a Fat Veiler, but you got to think about it. You know, your opponent doesn't assume you're playing Cyber Stein just because you can. You know, if I'm playing against Hieratics, most of the time that I have a Fat Veiler, I'm looking to Veiler one card and one card only, and that's King Dragon of Tomb. So, let's say that I Veiler that, okay, well, any Hieratic player with half a brain is just going to overlay for Gaia Dragon, and then they're just going to drop Stein as the normal summon. So it's like, all right, well, I've got to deal with Gaia Dragon, Stein, and a Cyber End Dragon that has 4,000 in piercing. Okay, well, pretty much my ass has been officially raped. You know what I mean? And this deck doesn't really have to worry about all the back row hate. You know, or excuse me, it doesn't have to worry about fighting through, like, you know, knee-deep back row like other decks do, because, I mean, I don't know if you guys have realized, but that giant wing beat dragon card, I mean, that shit is real. Like, I still have nightmares about that card. Somebody will special summon a Hieratic, then use that, go +4, and then, like, OTK me. I'm just so salty. And then the last deck I thought about, and this one is kind of thinking outside the box. Some people will be like, I'm not feeling that dislike, or whatever, is, what's it called? Karakuri. And obviously it's much like Geargia, where, you know, you can run limiter removal, and this deck specifically is like an OTK-ish deck, so again, it gives you kind of more opportunities to OTK your opponent. But if you're playing a control style of Karakuri, I could actually see somebody foregoing the cyber cards completely and going into NATURIA EXTERIO. That card is really, really good. Like, it's one of the best cards in the game that nobody can seem to summon, because the monsters that you have to use to get it on board are, like, kind of difficult themselves. But not being able to use traps or spells, like, thanks please. You know, I've actually played against Karakuri and just had, like, NATURIA Beast dropped on me turn 1, and it's a pain in the ass to deal with. Like, it's annoying. You know, especially if you back it up with, like, a Fiendish Chain or a Bottomless, like 2 decent traps. It's pretty much GG. I mean, all you need is one card in the graveyard. Since he mills every single turn as part of his effect, you can just banish the card that he milled. So, you know, Stein is an interesting card. You know what I mean? It definitely has a ton of upside, but when you look at it, it's like, how many decks could you really conceivably put it in? You know, you have to use decks where it either has a ton of synergy, like the machine-based decks, or you have to use a deck like Hieratic, where you don't really need your normal summon at all. Like, what that deck is. Dragon Rulers would have been a perfect fit, but that's not even a deck anymore. So, let me know what you guys think. Again, if you run Stein, what deck could you actually put it in and make it effective? Talk to you guys later. Subscribing makes life happy.